If you work in cybersecurity long enough, you start to categorize attacks. There's your run-of-the-mill ransomware, your data breaches, your phishing campaigns. But every once in a while, something comes along that completely changes how we think about cyber threats. NotPetya was one of those attacks. June 27, 2017. What started as a targeted attack against Ukraine became the most destructive cyber attack in history, causing over $10 billion in global damages. And the fascinating thing? It wasn't even supposed to spread beyond Ukraine's borders. Let's break down what actually happened. The attack vector was brilliant in its simplicity. Instead of trying to hack thousands of individual targets, the attackers went after MEDOC, Ukraine's most popular accounting software, used by about 90% of businesses in the country. Here's where it gets interesting from a supply chain security perspective. The attackers didn't just compromise MEDOC on the day of the attack. They'd been inside the company's systems for months, studying the software, understanding how updates were distributed, essentially turning a trusted business application into a delivery mechanism for malware. When that accounting software pushed out what appeared to be a routine update on June 27th, it was actually delivering a sophisticated piece of malware that security researchers would later name NotPetya. And this thing was built to spread fast. The technical approach was particularly clever. The attackers leveraged EternalBlue, the same NSA exploit that powered the WannaCry attack just months earlier. But they didn't stop there. They combined it with Eternal Romance, another leaked NSA tool, plus legitimate Windows administration utilities like PXEC and WMIC. This combination created what we call a worm, malware that can automatically spread from one computer to another without human intervention. But NotPetya had multiple propagation methods. It could exploit unpatched systems using EternalBlue, but it also harvested credentials from infected machines and used those to authenticate to other systems legitimately. From a network security perspective, this is nightmare fuel. Even if you'd patched all your systems against EternalBlue, if you shared network credentials with an infected machine, you were still vulnerable. The initial impact in Ukraine was devastating. Within hours, banks couldn't process transactions. The national railway system went offline. Airports couldn't manage flights. Even the radiation monitoring systems at Chernobyl had to be shut down, forcing technicians to use handheld Geiger counters. But here's where the story gets really interesting for those of us who study these attacks. NotPetya didn't stay contained to Ukraine. The malware began spreading through the networks of multinational corporations that had operations in Ukraine. Maersk, the Danish shipping giant, got absolutely devastated. Their entire global network went down, 45,000 PCs and 4,000 servers compromised. We're talking about a company that handles roughly 20% of global shipping capacity. Container ships were essentially stranded because the logistics systems couldn't track cargo or coordinate port operations. The recovery effort was massive. Maersk had to rebuild their entire IT infrastructure from scratch, and they managed to do it in just 10 days. They had one surviving domain controller in Ghana that wasn't infected, and they used that as the foundation to rebuild their global network. FedEx's TNT Express subsidiary was another major victim. Their package tracking and logistics systems were down for months. Pharmaceutical giant Maersk lost production capabilities and had drug manufacturing delays. The global supply chain impact was unprecedented for a cyber attack. What's particularly interesting about these corporate impacts is that they demonstrate how interconnected modern business networks are. A targeted attack against Ukraine ended up causing billions in damages to companies headquartered in Denmark, Germany, and the United States. Now here's where NotPetya gets really fascinating from a malware analysis perspective. On the surface, it looked like ransomware. Infected machines displayed the typical ransom message demanding $300 in Bitcoin. But when security researchers started analyzing the code, they discovered something disturbing. The ransom payment system was fundamentally broken. There was only one email address for all victims to contact, and it was quickly shut down by the email provider. More importantly, the malware overwrote the master boot record, the part of a hard drive that tells a computer how to start up. Even if victims could pay the ransom and somehow contact the attackers, the data was often unrecoverable because the filing system had been destroyed. This wasn't ransomware at all. It was a wiper, malware designed purely to destroy data, disguised as ransomware to create confusion and plausible deniability. This realization shifted how the cybersecurity community viewed the attack. We weren't looking at cybercrime motivated by profit. This was cyber warfare disguised as cybercrime. The technical sophistication becomes even more apparent when you look at how quickly NotPetya could compromise networks. In controlled environments, researchers observed complete network compromise in under an hour. Individual machines could be encrypted within 16 to 45 seconds of initial infection. The malware used legitimate system administration tools to avoid detection, a technique we call living off the land. Instead of bringing their own suspicious hacking tools, they used Windows built-in utilities. To most security products, this activity looked like normal system administration. Attribution work in cybersecurity is always challenging, but the evidence pointing to Russian military intelligence was overwhelming. Digital forensics teams traced the attack back to the compromised ME-DOC servers. Ukrainian authorities raided the software company and found evidence of long-term compromise. Code analysis revealed artifacts and techniques consistent with previous attacks attributed to Sandworm, a group within Russia's GRU military intelligence unit 7445. This is the same group responsible for attacking Ukraine's power grid in 2015 and 2016. The geopolitical context is crucial to understanding NotPetya. This wasn't happening in a vacuum. Ukraine and Russia were already engaged in conventional warfare following Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014. Cyber attacks against Ukrainian infrastructure had become routine. Power grid attacks, website defacements, financial sector disruptions. But NotPetya was different. Previous attacks had been surgical, targeting specific infrastructure. NotPetya was indiscriminate destruction designed to damage Ukraine's economy and demonstrate Russia's cyber capabilities to the world. The international response was significant. The United States, United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia formally attributed the attack to Russia's GRU. This wasn't some rogue hacker group operating independently. This was a military operation conducted by a nation-state. The attribution had real-world consequences. It influenced diplomatic relations, sanctions policies, and military planning. NotPetya essentially proved that cyber warfare between nation-states wasn't theoretical. It was happening right now. From an incident response perspective, NotPetya exposed critical gaps in how organizations prepare for cyber attacks. Many companies discovered that their backup systems were connected to the same networks that got infected. Their disaster recovery plans assumed localized failures, not network-wide destruction. The insurance industry struggled to determine coverage. Many policies had active war exclusions that potentially voided coverage for state-sponsored attacks. Organizations found themselves arguing with insurance companies about whether a cyber attack by foreign military hackers constituted an act of war. The defensive lessons from NotPetya are still relevant today. Network segmentation isn't optional, it's critical for containing the spread of malware. Air-gapped backups aren't paranoia, they're essential for recovery from destructive attacks. And supply chain security needs serious attention because every third-party software update is a potential attack vector. The attack also highlighted the importance of understanding your network architecture. If your accounting systems can communicate directly with your production servers, you're creating unnecessary risk pathways for attackers. What's particularly sobering about NotPetya is how it demonstrated the global impact of regional cyber conflicts. The attackers targeted Ukraine, but the damage spread worldwide through interconnected corporate networks. In our globalized economy, there's no such thing as a truly localized cyber attack anymore. The economic impact was staggering, over $10 billion in damages globally. That's not just an abstract number. That represents disrupted supply chains, delayed medical treatments, stranded cargo, and real economic hardship for businesses and individuals worldwide. From a threat intelligence perspective, NotPetya marked a turning point in how nation-state actors approach cyber operations. It showed that state-sponsored attackers could cause massive economic damage with relatively simple techniques and leaked tools originally developed by intelligence agencies. The psychological impact was just as significant as the technical impact. NotPetya sent a clear message: critical infrastructure and business operations that we depend on daily are vulnerable to destruction by foreign adversaries. 6 years later, we're still dealing with the implications. Cyber insurance premiums have increased dramatically. Organizations invest millions more in cybersecurity. International law is struggling to keep pace with the realities of cyber warfare. And the threat has only grown more sophisticated. We've seen similar destructive attacks since NotPetya, attacks that build on the techniques and lessons learned from this incident. Nation-state actors have learned that they can cause massive economic damage while maintaining enough plausible deniability to avoid serious retaliation. The really concerning aspect is that NotPetya was just the beginning. As our critical infrastructure becomes more digitized and interconnected, the potential impact of future attacks grows exponentially. The next major cyber incident might target financial systems, power grids, or transportation networks with even more devastating effects. For those of us working in cybersecurity, NotPetya serves as a constant reminder that we're not just defending against cyber criminals looking to make money. We're defending against nation-state military units with significant resources and political motivations to cause maximum damage. The fundamental lesson of NotPetya is that cyber warfare is not some distant future threat. It's happening right now. And in this new era of conflict, every network, every organization, and every country is potentially on the front lines.